So after the Chai Kok debacle, you know, they didn't have any dealings with Chai for a while. He traveled around and around, and at the end of the day, he went back to his state of Lu, and he was made a minister because Lu was in dire straits. They were in deep, deep trouble because Chai and Lu are adjoined. Lu is a smaller kingdom, much bigger kingdom. Chai is the super kingdom. And in fact, Yin Yang, his friend, the earthworm, had told, and a number of other advisors had told the Duke of Chai, Lu is very weak now. Let us have a meeting called a Treaty of Friendship. In this Treaty of Friendship, we will extract as much as we can concessions from Loi, because Loi is much weaker. In fact, they always attack them and try to and claim the cities and towns and villages. So he said, let's have a Treaty of Friendship, and we really bully them this time and take more. In fact, the commander-in-chief said to the Duke of Chai, he says, I have 1,000 of the best archers in ambush, 10,000 of the best infantrymen, few hundred chariots all ready. The moment you give the signal to drop the goblet of wine, we'll come and capture the Duke, we'll slay him, and we'll overrun Loi. So remember, Confucius is the guy who refuses to teach military strategy. Here's the chance to answer the question, does he know anything about military strategy? Well, Confucius was asked to come to the meeting, and of course he meets his good friend Mr. Earthworm there, and he's with his Duke of Lu, who's petrified, completely terrified of the Duke of Chai, who's much smarter than him, much more senior than him, who, you know, in terms of achievements, you know, better than him by 1,000-fold. So he's like, I'm going to meet this guy, what am I going to do? Confucius said, don't worry, right? So what Confucius was going to do was, he knew that Chai was going to do something really terrible to them. So Confucius said, I'm going to go to this lord, the strongest lord in our kingdom, and ask him to borrow his chariots. He has hundreds of chariots and good chariotsmen. So he went to see the Duke. Went to see this lord and says, the Duke's going to have a meeting with the other Duke. So you, as the biggest lord in this dukedom, can you provide us chariots? And the Lord said to him, who are you? And so Confucius said, I hear you are the best archer of the land. He says, can I be so brave as to ask you for an archery match? If you beat me, I go home empty-handed. I beat you, you provide your chariots. So Confucius and the Lord went for archery contest. And of course, Confucius won. So the Lord said, okay, you can have the chariots. But guess what? On the day of the meeting, the chariots refused to turn up. They didn't honor their word. So were they going to get massacred? Watch this space. During the meeting, all the protocol was arranged so that the Duke of Chai is like this, and the Duke of Loi was like this, to make him feel small. And then after that, the Duke of Chai called out these savages. They were all wall-painted, tattooed, you know, and they came out bloodied and looked so fierce, and they do this savage dance, you know, and the Duke of Loi was going, oh my goodness, who are these people? Oh, I'm so scared. And Confucius said, stay cool, baby, stay cool. After that dance was over, Confucius got his people out and they played the war drums, which is a piece created during the Zhao Mo Wang's time to use the battle against the Shang dynasty. When they played that, the savages started panicking. These drums are so fearful. You know, the savages already forgot their war dance. The Duke of Chai says, I've never heard this music before, but it's pretty scary. Ask Mr. Earthworm. Mr. Earthworm said, I've never heard it either before. So Confucius was already outmaneuvering them. Second stage, midway through the conversation, all these chariots came out from the Chai kingdom. All the bowmen came out with their arrows. And Confucius said, what's the meaning of this? And the Duke of Chai says, oh, you know, we're a mighty dukedom. We have to show you our power. Confucius says, hey, have you forgotten? You are the most powerful duke of the whole land of China. You must respect the protocol. We are here for a friendship treaty. What is this show of force? So they're all like, ha, 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 ha. And then next moment, Confucius doesn't have any chariots, remember? The general didn't turn up with the chariots. So in the adjoining mountains, suddenly, beat of drums and so much smoke. The whole mountain range was filled with smoke and drum music and noise and cymbals beating and all that. And then a few troops rode up and said, "There's our battalion there, 1,000 chariots, 100,000 men, they're rushing over there now." And Duke of Chai and his friends, "Oh my goodness, look at the whole mountain full of smoke." And that's when Confucius said, "Let's stick to the main theme, friendship treaty. Friendship treaty." So Mr. Erfam said, "Okay, let's do a deal." He says, "Whenever we go to war, you must provide 300 chariots. Duke of Lu Kingdom must provide 300 chariots." Confucius said, "No problem." He says, "But you took 3 cities from us illegally by invading us. We want the 3 cities back." Shocked them. Didn't expect the Duke of Lu's side to make demands because they're always a smaller and weaker side. And the Duke of Chai saw that he's been completely outmaneuvered. He said, "I agree." So in that meeting, with nothing, actually the mountain there were no soldiers. Because Confucius knew that the chariots weren't coming. He got thousands of farmers and peasants to carry all this these leaves and branches and over dry land, and then beat all these drums. So when they drag across with the cows and horses dragging it across, all the dust came out. And they were beating all these sounds. So it's a psychological game. It scared the hell out of these guys. They thought there were really 1,000 chariots coming. So who's the great military strategist? Mr. Earthworm or Confucius? Confucius didn't kill anybody, but he scared the hell out of them. And he got 3 cities back. But after that event, the Duke of Chai went back and said to Mr. Earthworm and his friends, and he said, "Look, this is not working out. Confucius is a really smart guy. This is really dangerous." So what he did was the ultimate. You cannot defeat Confucius. He's much smarter than you. So what do? You defeat the Duke. So what happened was, Confucius had told the Duke, "This is what we need to do to reorder the country." And the Dukes, after having this big victory, yeah, Confucius, I'll talk to you later. Benevolence, yeah, very good word. Let me learn how to write it. So we went back to have a good time. So what did the Duke of Chai do? He sent the most beautiful women, most beautiful horses. The horses could perform, and the women came, did strip shows and everything, you know. And the Duke forgot Confucius. Who's he? What's his name? How do you spell it? Benevolence? Never heard of it. So the day came, and there was to do a sacrificial ceremony to the ancestors, and the Duke was supposed to go and do it every year. Duke didn't turn up. Duke said, "Who? Ancestor? What's that? I'm having a good time here. Excuse me, these girls are really beautiful. What's your name again?" So when that was happening, Confucius was waiting for his sacrificial meat, because when the Duke goes and does the sacrifices, sacrificial meat is chopped up and split among all the ministers. Confucius didn't get his piece of sacrificial meat. The time had passed. He says, "The Duke has forgotten his ancestors. He's forgotten his rights. He's forgotten me." Back up. All the guys left. Yes. Yes. Because remember, if the Duke doesn't understand the first thing, the rights, the relationship with ancestors and heaven, he's forgotten how to be a Duke. Let's leave him. So Confucius actually met all these kinds of people who were less than perfect, who were not prepared to do what he asked them to do. And therefore, the end result was he left them. He went from place to place. This was his life, right? But let me get a few things sorted out about Confucius which you need to understand. There is in fact, I'm actually party to this mistake. When I was English educated, and when I went to the best schools in UK and US and taught there as well, you know, there was this kind of like a false assumption that somehow Chinese education was inferior to Western education. That somehow Western education was more thinking and reflective and more discursive and analytical, whereas Chinese education was reading by rote, remembering, working on your memory. Nothing is further from the truth. That is not Confucian teaching. A lot of people assume that Confucius taught us to just read something 2,000 times and repeat it in the exam. Completely wrong. Completely wrong. Explain to you why. One of my favorite teachings from Confucius is, he tells his students, "What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand." So when he teaches students, the most important thing is not speaking and hearing, not even seeing. The most important thing is doing. So a lot of his teaching was outdoors. Make them experience things, do things for themselves. So he was teaching through doing it through your own hands. So it's wrong to say that he was just read and repeat. But on top of that, you know, he says, one of his most famous sayings was, When I hold one corner of a square, I do not proceed until my students can hold the other 3 corners of the square and draw out the square. So what he's trying to say is, he does not teach you 100%. He teaches you in a way that elicits you, that makes you think what the rest of the equation is. And when you think it out and tell him, then he goes on to the next thing. So he's not teaching you just how to repeat after him. When I hold one corner of a square until my students work out the other 3 corners and tell me it's a square, I don't proceed. My students have to work out the other 3 corners. Now, I tried that out last Sunday with my students. And I said, look, I'm holding 3 corners here. Can you work out what this is? And my students all went back, conferred, checked their mobiles and checked their calculators and spoke to all their advisors. And they all came back, big smile on their face and said, it's a circle. Oh, sorry. Never mind, we try again. The other thing that Confucius harps upon is the teaching about how men or human beings should progress to become a guanji, a nobleman, positive exemplar of what a perfect person should be. And avoid being a Xiuyan, Sharon. And what's the difference between a guanji and Xiuyan? Well, the easiest example he gives is, guanji always puts yi on his forehead, righteousness. Whenever he has to make a decision, he always put what is right. Not by himself, but what is right by society, what is right by the Dou, what is right by the universe, by heaven. Yi is the predeterminant. Now, the Xiuyan put lei, which means self-profit. So whenever I see anything for me, okay, I'll go that way where there's most for me. So, of course, in his time and in all time, Xiuyan tend to be can accumulate great wealth, position, power, and guanji like him make huge sacrifices. Not enough food to eat, maybe no stable roof over their head, suffer threats. So as I was explaining this, I was going to ask my students what appeals to them, and before I could even finish, all of them were in the corner going, Xiuyan, Xiuyan. So we need to work on this one, huh? It's always more appealing to be a Xiuyan because you have profit. But in truth, if Confucius had chosen not to be a guanji, then we'll all be poorer for it, because he managed to spell out the spec for us to a level and degree which has never been matched. And he lived a life of that, right? So, in fact, he has a very interesting vessel that he hangs up on the wall. It's when it's empty, it's tilted. When it's full, it's perfectly balanced. And when it's overfull, it pours out gentle streams. So it describes human nature. When a person is empty, they're unbalanced. When they're good, they're perfectly balanced. And when they are sages, they stream out with knowledge and wisdom to benefit people. So he just loves that vessel. He's got that hanging in the corner. So when Confucius spent his life doing all these wonderful things, never sought for profit, never sought. In fact, he had very little personal life. Some of his favorite students actually died before him. Some were great warriors who defended him and fought for worthy causes. His favorite student died very young. Rumor has it that when one day they were crossing the icy lake, all Confucius' teachings fell into the icy waters in midwinter, and this guy dived down there to keep bringing them up, and finally he drowned. Trying to rescue Confucius' teachings. And this guy in the Confucius temple is buried next to Confucius. When Confucius asked all his senior students to describe what they want to do after he dies, this guy explained exactly what Confucius thought should be done. And Confucius was very proud of him, but unfortunately he died before Confucius.